Hi, everyone. Today, here in Austin, Texas, we have a very special guest on the CareerNerds podcast, and that's Miguel Gutierrez. Miguel is our head coach at CareerNerds, West Point class of 1980, and he was the founding director of the West Point AOG, which is Alumni Association Career Services. So, Miguel, tell me a little bit. You've had this great history of working with academy grads, working with military vets. What led you to that point where you started doing that for your career?
Well, thanks, Tom. So, about 20 years ago, I like to volunteer and assist other veterans in terms of helping them in their career goals. And that led me from being a volunteer to actually becoming the outreach manager for Lockheed Martin for their military assistance program. And then from there, I naturally progressed into coming to the West Point Association of Graduates to become their first director of career services. So that allowed me to impact directly the alumni from West Point in their transition from a military career into that civilian career. And then the natural progression from that then led me here to CareerNerds, where I now get to assist those individuals who've already been in the corporate world and have aspirations to move up into the corporate ladder, and therefore I can provide them guidance and assistance. And I really enjoy working with all these graduates and providing that knowledge and background experience that I have.
So, Miguel, you have had an amazing history in terms of coaching and helping a military academy grads from West Point, Naval Academy, and Air Force Academy. So you've been there, seen a lot. What are some of the biggest tips you have for what people can do in order to grow their career?
Yeah, the biggest tip I could give is you always should start building out your network, whatever stage of you are in your career. And that network can initially be your warm network, which is friends, colleagues, neighbors even, and then expanding that into a more professional, expansive network where you're identifying mentors, individuals who are in positions of leadership, who can connect you with other individuals and provide that breadth of knowledge to make you aware of opportunities within the corporate world and help you elevate your career to that next step.
I like how you divide it into warm network and the affinity group or cold network. A lot of people tend to really focus just on their warm network, on people that they met in the past, maybe worked with or went to school with at the academy or in grad school. So you talk about expanding your network. What are the ways that people can do that effectively on their own?
Right. So the way they can really do that is reach out to individuals that you know that are in what we call those affinity groups. And what are those affinity groups? Those could be individuals from where you went to undergraduate school or graduate school, business professional organizations that you may be a member of, former colleagues from other jobs that you've held in the past. Those are the people you start to reach out first. Then you can start using the leverage that LinkedIn provides to you by being able to maximize the capabilities that LinkedIn provides to you to create filter groups so that you can start identifying people by industry, by location, job title, even company that they may have worked with in the past or are currently working with now. So those are the types of groups you can start reaching out to, and that will really help your network grow.
Yeah, I'm really happy you mentioned that because a lot of people, when they focus on just their warm network, then typically it's not big enough and they need to really expand and start talking to people that they haven't talked to in the past. Why do you think that most people are reluctant to do that in terms of like really introducing themselves to strangers and building their network among people that they've never met?
So people are reluctant because naturally a lot of people are shy and they feel uncomfortable putting themselves out and reaching out to individuals they don't know. Well, the way to overcome that shyness is practice with what we call your warm network. You know, your spouse, your kids, your neighbors, a coworker, somebody that you feel at ease with and that can easily, feel that you can talk to them in a simulated environment of what a networking engagement would be. That's the best way. Just start with people you know, and then you can move on to reaching out to people that you're contacting for the first time.
So we've talked about how to build your network beyond your warm network, how to start talking to people that you haven't necessarily met before, but you have some kind of commonality. What about the personal brand? What advice would you have for people for really optimizing their personal brand from their online presence to how they tell their story?
I think the best way that somebody can do that is present their value proposition in their LinkedIn profile, because that's really critical because that communicates to other individuals what your core skill sets are, what your achievements are, and what you bring to the table beyond what is written just on a piece of paper, i.e. the resume. So that's how you can best present yourself to other individuals, because your LinkedIn profile today is the tip of the spear. It is no longer your resume. You don't want to be defined by that piece of paper. You want to be able to communicate with people and show the value you bring beyond what is just described in a resume.
So you're saying the LinkedIn profile beats the resume. I've heard that a lot, and that's actually what we teach at Career Nerds, the same thing. What do you think when people say, hey, I'm going to lead with my resume? Every day I get people's resume. I'm like, thanks for sending, but I can see your LinkedIn profile. Why is leading with a resume not the right thing to do in this day and age?
It's not the right thing to do in this day and age because you're battling against algorithms that companies have set up to filter out resumes. So if you don't meet the requirements of that particular position exactly for what they're looking for and have the keywords they're searching for that they've set up in that algorithm, you're automatically going to get rejected. At the same time, the recruiters who are reviewing those resumes have specific guidelines that they're looking for. And if you don't check off all the boxes that they're looking for, you're going to be rejected for the role. So if you have any intention of pivoting outside your core area, that is going to be very, very difficult for you because you're only going to be looked at as somebody that can do what is defined within that resume.
So Miguel, it sounds like what you're saying is to expand your network and actually meet people and have a conversation rather than just shooting your resume off to 100 people. And it's about having those conversations with the decision makers that can really be a game changer. Is that right?
That's true. Because when you talk to people, you can develop that relationship with them and show them that value proposition that you bring beyond what's on that piece of paper, so that you can demonstrate that you have those critical leadership skills that are so important when you start moving higher up the corporate ranks. That is what is critical. That is what decision makers are looking for.
So Miguel, what are the biggest mistakes you've seen people make? You've seen people make a lot of mistakes. Why don't we just start talking about those mistakes?
Well, the first mistake is like what we've already been talking about, Tom, is people are leading with their resume. So that's the first mistake. The second mistake is they're not developing an effective network. And then once they create it, they don't keep it going. They got to keep it alive. So you don't let your network that you spent all this time and effort to develop die on the vine. And the third element, your LinkedIn profile. You need to have a full-bodied LinkedIn profile that separates you from the herd, that communicates your value proposition, and wants people to engage with you, especially senior leadership. When they see your LinkedIn profile, they want to think, that's a person that gets things done. That's a leader. I want to talk to that person.
One thing also that I hear, Miguel, is that, networking is about two things: getting information and getting referrals to talk to other people. But a lot of people do the wrong thing, and they use networking as a way to ask for a job. Why is asking for a job not the right thing to do in networking?
That's the wrong thing to do, Tom, because if you're networking with an individual and you just come out and say, do you have a job for me? And they say no, that's the end of the conversation. So what we want to do is get knowledge. We need information. So we want to gather that information. And at the end of every networking call, our primary objective then is to get referrals to one or two more individuals who can give us even more information, who can connect us with decision makers, right? That's the primary objective of any networking call. So it's two things: information and then a referral.
So you talk about referrals, and I think that's a great thing that people can give us in networking. How many referrals does it take? Like, is it sometimes the chain is 5 to 10 people, or what have you seen in your experience?
Well, we always want to try and get 1 to 2 referrals from every contact that we have, and that will grow geometrically. And pretty soon, from just one individual, we can be talking to 20, 30, 40 people from that. And normally, when you get to around that number, 30, 40, 50 people that you've talked to, that's where critical mass happens, and we get made aware of opportunities. We get connected with the decision makers who make us aware of opportunities that they have within their organization. So that's normally about how long it takes.
So Miguel, at CareerNerds, we worked with hundreds and hundreds of academy grads, and you've worked with hundreds as well. What do you think is so useful and so helpful about tapping into the academy grad network that can help other academy grads?
Well, academy grads are 10 times more likely to connect with you when you reach out to them. And that is significantly greater than the connection rate for other affinity groups, such as maybe classmates from your graduate school. And so by connecting with those graduates and the breadth and depth of those graduates in corporate America, that gives you great leverage and is a great resource to tap into to find mentors, leaders, and individuals who can advise you to help you move up the corporate ladder.
Every day I hear the same thing. People say the Academy Grad Network hasn't helped me in the past. And typically it's because they've gone to the local events, which are small groups, and they haven't known how to approach it. What have you seen in terms of like people saying, hey, the Academy Grad Network hasn't helped me? And why do you think Academy grads have been largely ineffective if they go just to the local events?
The reason graduates aren't effective is when they go to these local events, it's a very small sample group. And so they are not necessarily the right people in the right positions. They may not be decision makers. They're retirees or people that have recently maybe left the military. So they are not the proper target group for you. Whereas if you go into LinkedIn, you can identify those graduates who meet the criteria that you're trying to use to identify grads, such as location, job title, industry, company name, and geographical region. That is why most graduates don't have success, because they're concentrating too much on just their local community of Academy grads.
Yeah, that's very interesting you said that, because when I got out of the military, moved back home to Dallas, I went to those local events and I thought, wow, this isn't really as helpful as I thought it would be. I thought the Academy Grad Network would be more helpful. But when LinkedIn came around and I started using the LinkedIn database and finding grads that were in my industry or in marketing where I was, then I found there was an enormous potential there, because I was able to really target the right kind of people that would help me advance my career.
That is why utilizing LinkedIn is so important to identify other graduates, because that can immediately expand your network and you can start targeting the individuals that can provide you the advice you need and connect you into what we call the hidden job market, where you're made available of opportunities that aren't publicized to the public.
So Miguel, I'd like to ask you a little bit of a personal question. You spent 3 years as the founding director at West Point's AOG Career Services, and then you joined us at CareerNerds 2 years ago as head coach. What is it about CareerNerds that you liked, and why did you join our program as the head coach?
So Tom, I was really attracted to the mission of CareerNerds, that of helping our Academy graduates who are in corporate America achieve that next level of success for them. And by doing that, it allows me to continue that work that I was conducting at the Association of Graduates, by helping them identify and build up their brand awareness, identify people to connect with, and then coaching them in the next stage of networking with individuals to identify opportunities in that hidden job market. So that's what really drew me to CareerNerds, to continue helping out our fellow Academy graduates.
So Miguel, after talking to thousands of Academy grads over the last several years, what is the biggest mistake you've seen that Academy grads make in wanting to take their career in a new direction?
The biggest mistake I see graduates make is they concentrate on the advertised job market, which only constitutes 20% of the jobs that are out there. They're not concentrating on the 80% of jobs that make up the hidden job market. That's the biggest mistake. In the 20% job market, that's where all the competition is. If you can concentrate on the hidden job market, you may be the only candidate for a job, and so your odds of being successful in obtaining that position are significantly greater.
So you talked about the hidden job market. We talk about that a lot at CareerNerds. A lot of times people say, why would I focus on the hidden job market? Because there's no job openings. There's no advertised job. Tell us, why is the hidden job market the way that you want to go, rather than what a lot of people do is focus on that 20% advertised market?
Well, the obvious point is when you concentrate on that 20% job market, you're competing against hundreds and hundreds of people for that one job. Whereas if you're looking at the hidden job market and you're connecting with individuals who are the decision makers, they are making you aware of an opportunity, or they may actually create an opportunity for you because they really value the skills that you bring to the table. So you being the only candidate, what are the odds? Significantly greater than you competing against hundreds and hundreds of people.
That's a good point. The hidden job market is where most of the jobs are. In fact, Miguel, you and I met 5 years ago through an introduction from a fellow West Pointer. And I remember you spent an hour on the phone with me trying to convince me to come work for you at West Point AOG Career Services. Instead, I helped you get somebody, Scott Leachman, who's also on our team, to join you at AOG. And then fast forward a few years, you brought your whole team over to CareerNerds. Isn't that a great example of how networking should work?
It is. It's a perfect example because you helped me identify an individual, and because you said this is the right individual for you, in this case, Scott Leachman, I trusted your business acumen. I trusted you as a fellow graduate, that your judgment is spot on. And so when I hired Scott, he ended up being the perfect candidate and a perfect employee for it. And so when I came over to CareerNerds, I thought I will bring that team with me because they have value, and it just proves the networking methodology works.
Miguel, do you have any examples of how Academy grads have taken their career to the next level? What examples can you share with us?
Yeah, I think there's two really good examples I can share. One can emphasize how we had an individual who had been in the same position in corporate America for the past 18 years and couldn't break through that glass ceiling. And he wanted to move up to that next level, but he was using traditional methods of trying to find that next job and was not having any success at all. But by utilizing our program and maximizing his networking capabilities and identifying opportunities, he was able to crack that glass ceiling and move into a role that really fit all his expectations. Secondly, another example is had an individual that wanted to pivot away from what he had been doing and into a brand new industry. And so by networking, he was able to connect with individuals who thought he was a really good fit for another organization and for a role, in this case, as president of an organization in an industry in which he had absolutely zero experience in. But because he could communicate his value add proposition to those decision makers, he beat out every single candidate who had experience in that industry, and he became the president of that organization with absolutely zero experience. And that was tapping into that hidden job market.
Miguel, thanks for sharing those examples, and thanks for joining us here in Austin for a wonderful podcast and interview with you. And everyone, thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you guys again at our next episode.